Yeah, this is Mickey Raphael, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
Fuck yeah. Nice.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. It's walking the floor time. Watch out. Those darn Russian hackers have hacked us. I'm going to be delivering fake news all day long and swaying election results from coast to coast. Those darn Russian hackers. Just getting moving here because I played a gig last night up in Camarillo at Revolution Surf Shop with my good buddy Tim Curran. Good little gig. So good, in fact, that a little girl curled up in my guitar case and almost fell asleep. It was awesome. Really, really enjoyed it. There's something about the smell of enchiladas and beer mixed with that wetsuit, that neoprene wetsuit smell, and surf wax and all that surf store kind of smell that gets going in there. It just makes me feel good. I like it. Don't forget, got a couple shows opening up for X coming up. The 18th of December at the Casbah, and the 31st, New Year's Eve, 31st of December at the Roxy in Hollywood. And that's going to be full band. Last night was the last solo acoustic gig I'm doing for a while. Though I'm trying to set up another one with Timmy down south, so hopefully I'll have some details on that coming soon. So in the meantime, come see me full band, loud, opening for X soon. Oh boy, I am obsessed with the Bruce Springsteen autobiography. I've been on a Springsteen tear. Love that book. Highly recommend it. That is the book of the week on this week's Walking the Floor podcast episode. Springsteen. Can't get enough. I love when you read a good rock autobiography and it makes you go back and listen to that person's catalog. And I kind of realized, as much as I love Springsteen, I never really got into his first few albums, which seems insane because they're really, really good. I like Bruce Springsteen's worldview, gotta say. I'm on the team, baby. Speaking of worldviews, I'm a little curious. Now, there's got to be some people out there that listen to this podcast that voted for, President-elect Trump. And so here's my question for you. First off, if you voted for Trump, did you do that because you were hoping that he would actually drain the swamp? Did you think he was going to live up to all that sort of fake populist rhetoric that he was spinning out there on the campaign trail? And if that's the case, are you disappointed by his cabinet appointments? Tweet at me. I want to know. And don't tweet, yell at me. I am genuinely curious here as to whether or not this is shocking to people who are Trump supporters. Because you got to look at these last couple. What's their names? Tillerson, the guy from ExxonMobil, and Pruitt. These are fossil fuel industry people, which I guess you could view as this is really good news for the fossil fuel industry and really, really bad news for every other living being on this planet. Bad news. Bye-bye to the climate. No, but I'm seriously curious. I don't want to Twitter argue with anyone. I just want to see what you're thinking. So these are the things that I sit there late at night and think about. Anyway, let me tell you a story about my good friends at Zounds.com. You know Zounds.com. It's where you go online to buy your music gear. There's a Walking the Floor listener named John Castelli. He's got a cute little picture of a sheepdog on his Twitter profile there. Anyway, he tweeted at me that he heard about Zounds on our podcast, and he went onto their website and he bought a black Chris Shiflett Telecaster Deluxe signature model. And he did that because he got the best price, and they shipped it out probably quick, I'm guessing, because that's the way Zounds does it. Now he's got himself a beautiful new guitar, man, and that's what you can do with Zounds, because Zounds kicks ass. They are not like those imposter retailers online. They're the real deal. Kick-ass rock and roll attitude and a commitment to getting you the best. Zounds.com. All right, let's move over to the interview. Okay, so recently I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, but I just went ahead and picked it up anyway, which I don't usually do, so it was lucky that I did. Lo and behold, it was Mr. Mickey Raphael on the other line. Mickey Raphael, the longtime harp player for Willie Nelson. He goes, hey man, I heard you were trying to get a hold of me to interview me for your podcast. I was like, yeah, totally, I'd love to, man. Let me know next time you're in LA and let's do it. He goes, I'm in LA right now. Goes, meet me at the Pantages this afternoon. It's like, great. Drive over there, meet him out by the buses. We go down into the bowels of that beautiful old LA theater, and I set my little rig up, and we had a great conversation that you're about to hear right now. He told me some really good stories about growing up in Dallas, around the folk music scene down there, with guys like Guy Clark, Townes Van Zandt, and how he knew nothing much at all about country music and really only joined Willie Nelsons' band as like a stepping stone to hopefully get to Waylon Jennings' band, which never happened. But of course, he did get to hang out with Waylon and Merle Haggard and Chris Christopherson and all those guys back in the day. We talked about playing Max's Kansas City, which is crazy to think about Willie Nelson playing at Max's Kansas City. It's like a place that I associate with like the Heartbreakers and Lou Reed and people like that. And, he was never officially hired in Willie Nelson's band. He was just, in his words, never asked to leave. Here's Mickey Raphael on Walking the Floor.
Is Rami playing with you?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Please tell him hi for me.
I will, for sure. How do you know Rami?
Just through being on the road and playing with. Well, sometimes when we do one, we'll do a special deal with Willie, and Don Was will be the band leader. So Rami sometimes is the keyboard player. Yeah, we played the White House. I played the White House with him.
Really?
With Willie, yeah.
How does that work? How does Willie decide if it's
no, Willie doesn't decide. In fact, we just did. We did off the record. Yeah, we did Kimmel yesterday.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're doing a record. We're doing a song from this record that he did was a Ray Price tribute. So it's a big band kind of thing with twin fiddles.
Oh wow!
So our manager just called and says we're going to be in L.A. Put together a band. So I got Sarah Watkins playing fiddle from Nickel Creek.
Yeah, I interviewed her a few months ago.
She's great.
No,
Gabe,
she's fantastic.
Victor from Punch Brothers on fiddle. So I got twin fiddles there, and they're both stars in their own right.
Yeah.
And then Jim Cox, who's an MD, plays with Barbra Streisand, and he also plays with Mark Knopfler.
Should I be cutting all this out of?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the band I put together for that. So it's for fiddles was Sarah Watkins, Gabe Wicker from Punch Brothers, Jim Cox on piano, Bob Glaub, who's been playing with Jackson Browne forever, John Ferraro, who I didn't know, but everybody recommended him as a great jazz drummer, Dean Parks, who I've known since he's from Fort Worth, but he's been out here, session guy, and he's came out here with Sonny and Cher, so he goes back that far, and then Greg Leese, who plays pedal steel.
I know Leese.
Yeah, so it was Heartache by the Number, which we don't really play with Willie. Yeah. And I just told I put these guys together, and I said, this is a band I don't have to rehearse or tell anything to. Right. They show up, Willie walks out on stage, does the song once, it sounds better than the record. Yeah. Done deal. Just getting the right guys together.
Are you kind of like the MD of the band?
Unofficial, because I do a lot of the outside work that Willie does. And it's mainly just management will call me and say, "Oh, Willie's doing this thing at the White House. Put a band together."
Right.
So,
are you've been? When did you join Willie Nelson's band?
73.
So are you like the last man standing in the band from?
Well, I'm the newest guy. Yeah, I'm the last man from. Well, no. Paul English is the drummer. Right. The original drummer.
But is he still playing with you guys? Because I saw you guys.
He's playing percussion. He had a stroke several years ago. Right. So his health isn't great, but he's hanging in there. He plays 3 or 4 songs. Right. And then his brother, Billy, was playing, and his family has some health issues, so he's been off tour. But we've got a new guy, Mike Meadows, that we're working with now. Yeah, okay. Just for this tour.
It's kind of amazing that I didn't realize that was his brother. I thought that was his son because they look like the same.
Like, they're probably 20 years apart.
Right. If you never told me that it was a different guy, I'd just be like, oh, that's great. He's still got he's still got that guy.
Yeah, Paul's 84, and Bobby, Willie's sister, is 85. Right. Willie's 83.
So what about, like, because you were in that Honeysuckle Rose movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What year was that?
God, I don't know. That was Honeysuckle Rose, the first movie, so that was late 70s.
How long did that lineup stick together?
Oh, that band
'Cause that's
was together for...
the live footage in that is so good.
Yeah, that band was together for a while, because Grady Martin was the guitar player that played with us, kind of in the background. He was a stand-in for Slim Pickens. Slim Pickens acted in the movie,
Right.
and Grady was playing the part, so Grady just decided to stay out. Now, Grady was like A-Team studio guy
Sure.
in Nashville from the 40s.
Right.
He played with Hank Williams.
Right.
That famous song El Paso, Marty Robbins, that's his guitar part on there. And he was like the band lead session leader for 30, 40 years in Nashville.
Right.
And when I met, first time I met Eric Clapton, he came by our show when we were playing out here. And I said, "Do you want to go meet Willie?" And he goes, "No, I want to meet Grady."
Right. Yeah, because that's what kind of player that guy was.
Yeah.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Dallas.
So you're a Texan.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not around country music at all. I knew nothing about country music. You know, I was loving the Stones and the band and Dylan and Neil
Right.
Young. And musically, I started off in that folk music scene, you know, which was still Bob Dylan and, you know, it was the Vietnam War was underway. I mean, this is the late 60s or middle 60s. So with harmonica, I guess, plus it was the English invasion, you know, the
Right,
Stones,
sure.
the Kinks,
Yep.
John Mayall. So that
Right.
was kind of my first entrance into the harmonica. It wasn't the Chicago blues sound. It was the English rock guys.
The people influenced by the Chicago.
And then, eventually I thought, well, where are these guys getting all these ideas from? And then I discovered, you know, Chicago blues as I got a little older.
Well, of course, country music has a history of having harp in it, but it's not like one of the first instruments that I think of when I think of country music. So I'm wondering how you wound up playing country instead of blues or rock and roll, or were you playing blues and rock and roll all the time anyway? But I'm like, how did you become known in the country music scene?
Well, started out again in that folk scene. When I first started playing harmonica, I'd been going to this little folk club called the Rubaiyat in Dallas. And Michael Murphy, Jerry Jeff Walker, Ray Wiley Hubbard, these were the Townes Van Zandt, Guy Clark. These were the singers. It was a singer-songwriter.
Were you around all those guys?
Oh, yeah. I grew
Really?
up watching these guys, yeah. And Mike Murphy was like one of the first guys to bring me up on stage to play with him. Because when I was 15, I'd met a local harmonica player named Don Brooks. And Donnie went on to play with Waylon. So I followed Donnie's career. I mean, he was the first guy that sat me down and showed me a diatonic scale on the harmonica. You know, how to work my way around it. And basically with that pattern of notes, every lick I play. You know, just take this pattern and play it forwards, backwards, you know, 3 notes at a time, 6 notes at a time. That's the skeleton or the basics, you know, for everything that I do, basically. Right. So he showed me how to get around the harmonica like that. And then I just started.
Was that your first instrument, harmonica?
Yeah, I was a terrible guitar player. You know, and I love music. So the harmonica just started to come kind of easy. I just, you know, felt it. I would go to these concerts, take my harmonica in my pocket, and I saw Canned Heat play. And their big hit at the time was On the Road Again, ironically. Right. And I was probably 15 years old. I went home and just was doodling around the harmonica and played a lick, accidentally, a blues lick. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. There's a pattern there's a method to this madness.
Did you know about the cross harp thing at that point?
I was playing cross harp, but I didn't know that much about it. I knew that you could draw, you know, to get the one chord, you know. So I was playing cross harp, but I didn't realize how you draw hold number 2 and 3, or maybe bend 3, blow 4, 5. I didn't understand that at the time, and I just accidentally hit that combination of a blues lick. You know, that night I was so inspired hearing these guys, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, there's a combination. If I can just crack this code, you know. And then I met Donnie Brooks. You know, I
should have paid attention in math class. God damn it!
It's total math, you know. So no, it's weird because like a guitar, you can look at your fingers and see where you're playing. Yeah. With a harmonica, it's all by ear. Right. You know, and the notes aren't really in you know, you have to understand that pattern. It makes perfect sense once you understand the diatonic or the pentatonic scale. Right. On a diatonic harp. So. And it's the same pattern for every key, basically. So it's like knowing how to play in the key of G on a guitar. It's like having a capo. I just switched to another harp.
Right. Just out of curiosity, I know with like guys that play pedal steel, they get annoyed if you call it pedal steel. They always want it to be called steel. Is harp the same thing? Like if somebody calls it harp, like fiddle, violin, there's that thing. Like, is it that same thing as harp? Like the more sort of, I don't know, appropriate term for it?
Yeah, I mean harmonic. I say harmonica because I'm not trying to be too hip. Harp. My blues harp. Something you can call it anything.
Right. So how did you moving forward? How did you wind up hooking up with Willie?
I was playing with B.W. Stevenson at the time, who was a folk singer. I mean, singer-songwriter in that, during that era. And he had written that song "My Maria" that I think Brooks and Dunn had a big hit on. So he was around that Jerry Jeff Walker, Michael Murphy, that whole scene in the early '70s. He was from Dallas. He'd gotten signed by RCA, so I had played on his record and was touring with him as we were a duo or a trio sometimes. And we'd play in Austin, and Coach Royal, who was the coach of the University of Texas football team, and an icon in Texas, and a real supporter of the arts, music especially, patron of the arts, he had heard me play in a club. So he got word to me in Dallas, where I was living, after one of the ball games. He says, I think it was a Texas-Arkansas game. He said, after the game, we're having a little picking party at my hotel room. I'd like to meet you. Come over, bring your harmonicas. And I thought, he said, so my friends will be there with the guitars passing around. And I thought, how cool. I mean, I knew nothing about sports. I was not a sports fan. Being a musician, athletes were kind of the antithesis of what I was trying to do.
I'm about to walk into a room and get jumped by the whole football team.
Totally. I mean, I was like the last person chosen on the teams, if they even chose me, So I hated athletics. And so here is Coach Royal, who they named a stadium after him. He's, embracing me, telling me to come by. I was 20 years old. And Willie was there. And I'd had one Willie record only because being on RCA, we went to the vault and got to pick any records we want. When I got enough Guess Who records, I saw this Willie Nelson, and it's called Willie Nelson and Family. And the album cover was so bizarre, I had to have the record. And it was Willie and family and friends standing around a bonfire at his farm in Ridgetop, Tennessee. So it was in the woods, and everybody was in a semicircle around the fire. And I was trying to identify everybody one time, and one of the guys was saying, "Oh, this guy here, he just walked in from out of the woods. Nobody knows who he is." And now, knowing what I know about our organization, there could be a guy. There was a guy who rode our bus years ago that we didn't even know. It was like, I thought he was with you. No, I thought he was your friend. This shit kind of.
I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often.
It happened for a lot. Now we can't wait to leave each other.
Was that album was Willie Nelson already sort of making that transition from being part of the Nashville, trying to sort of make it in the Nashville mainstream to, where he ultimately moved back to Austin? And
he hadn't moved back yet. So this was stuff like Everybody's Talking at Me. I mean, my favorite song on the planet is that Fred Neil song, Everybody's Talking. Both Sides Now. I think they were all covers, mostly covers on this record. But it was just, the album cover piqued my interest. And then listening to him play guitar and sing it, I thought, oh, this is really interesting. This ain't that country that I thought it was. The only thing I knew about country was Tex Ritter, Blood on the Saddle.
Right.
That was the first country song I listened to. And then I started getting interested because loving the Burrito Brothers and the Byrds, and you've got Graham Parsons, is bonding with Keith Richards. And I'm thinking, why are they liking this stuff? And then I, fell in love with Merle, and Donnie Brooks had gone to work for Waylon. So there was my tie into Waylon.
Okay.
And then Willie and Waylon were best pals.
Right.
So the fact that I got to meet Willie, I thought, well, this is going to be my segue to Waylon, who I really wanted to play with. Donnie left. We'll go back to Coach. So I met Willie at the Coach's party. They just would pass a guitar around, and I'd jam with them and stuff, and didn't know any of these songs. But I'd heard Funny How Time Slips Away, probably Aretha's version, or Ray Charles sang it. What else did A Nightlife, B.B. King do it. So I was aware of these songs, But then Willie would play these standards, these Hank Williams songs that I really wasn't that familiar with. Well, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. I knew that.
Right,
so I would jam with him on that. And then Willie said, hey, if you ever hear we're playing anywhere, come sit in. So that kind of piqued my interest. I thought this guy is kind of interesting, and I was this hippie kid in 1969, 1970.
I mean, did Dallas have the same? We always think of Austin as having the freaky, sort of hippie, redneck thing that developed there. But was that happening all over Texas? Like, was there a scene for
No,
that in
not
Dallas?
at all. It was no, it was pretty slick in Dallas, but there was a folk scene, and then there was a country scene. There was a place called the Western Place that was a big club, country dance club,
Right.
You know.
So did you move down to Austin?
After I went to work I went to
Like, when did you officially join his band?
Well, this is 73, 72. I met Willie. Then
Okay.
in 70, probably November when I met him. 73 came around, and I saw Willie was playing a benefit at a junior high school in the gymnasium. So I went down there and sat in with him. Just played, and after we played, and we're set up on the basketball floor, and I think we played Fraulein, which is a two-step song, because everybody wanted to dance. They didn't care about hearing Willie Nelson. They wanted to dance, and we were playing a dance. So we played, I think, Fraulein 4 times that night, and I finally learned it. Right. I mean, I was just jamming. I didn't know anything about these songs. So we went to a truck stop afterwards for breakfast, and I was getting ready to leave about 2 in the morning, and I thought, well, I'll stay and have one more cup of coffee. And Willie said, hey, we're going to New York in a couple of months. Why don't you go with us? And they were going to go play Max's Kansas City, which was like the punk club.
Max's
there.
Kansas City?
Yeah. So I played there in 73.
God, that's insane. Like, alongside, like, who else would have been around? Like
Television
Lou Reed
Lou
and
Reed,
Johnny Thunders, and a bunch of cats like that.
Blondie later, a few years later, probably.
Yeah. So and then from that point forward, were you just in the band?
Yeah, I was in the band.
working?
Well,
And how much were you touring back then?
They would play weekends, so I would show up. They didn't have a bus, so everybody would take their own cars. So I'd find out where they're playing, and I would just come sit in on the weekends.
Was the bus in Honeysuckle Rose the actual bus?
No. That was
damn, I wanted to believe that
was
so
a school
bad.
bus. No, we had a Winnebago without a front door
Oh.
that we traveled in.
Without a front door?
Yeah, it had a screen door.
Right. And you take that thing on the highway?
Take it on to Montana in the dead of winter.
Oh my God.
So that came later. First, we had our own cars. We just stay in Texas.
Right.
He moved back from Nashville and just didn't want to tour outside of Texas. And we'd play these dance halls. So I would just show up on the weekends. A lot of the places I'd wait in the car till Paul got there, because I couldn't walk in by myself. I mean, they were real redneck joints, and I had big afro hair, was this hippie kid. So I'd wait until they all got there. We'd walk in together. And one day Willie says to Paul, he said, what are we paying Mickey? And Paul goes, nothing. He's just coming to sit in. And Willie goes, well, double his salary. So that's how that kind of started. So I tell people that I really wasn't officially hired. I was just never asked to leave.
Right.
So it just kind of segued. By the time we finally made it to New York to play Max's, I was already playing pretty often. But it was just weekends.
Right.
And just around Texas.
And so did you start going in and making records with him as well?
Well, when I first started working, he had just done Phases and Stages with Jerry Wexler. But I was doing sessions in Dallas. I was playing on little custom country records and doing commercials and stuff. So I kind of had a start in the studio.
Right.
I really loved being in the studio. And the first record I did with Willie was Red-Headed Stranger.
No, really?
Yeah, so we just went in. There was a studio in Dallas that I've been working at during, working for other people. So when Willie said he wanted to record, had this idea for a record, I just turned him on to the studio that I was working at. And we did Red-Headed Stranger, and he's basically just had these songs written on a napkin, and we'd be set up in a circle in the studio, and he'd be playing them, and that record is so sparse because we're really hearing them for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's barely
Was it
anything.
supposed to be a demo or something? I've always wondered about that record, like almost like a Nebraska by...
Yeah, well, the label said it was a good demo, and they wanted to put strings on it. Willie said, no, this is the record. And that's how he cuts. He cuts live.
Still?
That's how
he...
Sometimes. Not,
right.
Not the last few records we've cut tracks and then he'll sing. But the concept record, which he came up with, the story, and based around a few songs that had already been...
Take a walk on the wild side.
See, that was that Max's Kansas City reference right there.
Yeah. The girlfriend.
Oh, if you want to take it.
Let me go. Yeah. Hi. Oh, really? Great. Can I call you back in a little bit? I'm doing an interview. Okay, I'll call you in a little bit. Okay.
So Red-Headed Stranger, of course, is one of, Willie's most classic records. But from your point of view, what are the most sort of, pivotal moments in Willie's career, like in the years that you've been with him? What are the records, I guess, that stand out as the sort of pivotal moments for you?
I think Red-Headed Stranger, which was the first one I worked on, and it was so sparse. And I go back and I hadn't listened to it for 20 years and went back and listened to it the other day, and it really knocked me out, just how simple it was.
Have they done like a deluxe reissue or something?
Yeah, they did.
Bonus recordings and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, there are a few outtakes in there.
Yeah, okay.
That and Teatro that we did with Daniel Lanois.
Right.
Stardust that we did out here with Booker T. And again, we were set up in a house. We were set up in
a
Emmy
very
Lou's
different
house.
kind of record, like more of
it was the American Songbook,
right?
But it's still the band set up in this house. Emmylou Harris had a house that was her studio, that with a mobile truck outside the house with all the tape machines. We did that on tape. We're in this semi truck, the Enactron truck, it was called. It was a location recording truck. The band did the Last Waltz with that gear, but it lived there. Brian Ahern was Emmy's producer and husband. He had the house on Lanny Lane in Beverly Hills, and we had set up in the living room, and I was set up in the bathroom, in the shower. Basically, that's where I did all Emmylou's records.
You played on her records too?
Yeah, their first 2 or 3 records.
Have you always done a lot of other, recording projects and band projects?
Yeah, as much
outside?
as I can.
Right. How does that work? If
Just
how do you know what the Willie schedule is going to be, and how do you?
I kind of know what that's hard to find out because our schedule changes.
Right.
I'll get
because you've been touring with Chris Stapleton.
Yeah, Willie. We started off this year working kind of light. Willie didn't want to work more than 7 or 8 days a month, so it left another couple of weeks open for me. And I've got a standing offer with Chris at any dates that I can make.
Oh, really? So you don't have to commit to the whole thing.
No.
You can just do the bits and pieces.
Yeah, because he does great with just his wife and the rhythm section.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'd just be icing on the cake.
You just mentioned the rhythm section. I'm curious about something. And this is a total left turn, but since you mentioned that, I'll just go there. How come with the current way that Willie goes out and tours, which he didn't used to do, how come the drummer now just plays a snare?
Because
that's like a big sonic shift.
Yeah.
Sonic. It's a very different dynamic.
Mm-hmm. We did a record called Spirit that had no drums on it. So when we did a tour,
old school, like the old
totally
country
old school,
recordings.
just real acoustic.
I always wondered if that was the inspiration.
Yeah, actually, I'm not even on that record. It was done as a demo, and it was one of those times it was the end of a tour, and I just wanted to go home. So I went home and missed out.
Is that how your gig works? You can decide, I ain't going to that recording session.
He wasn't going to cut a record. He just had these ideas for songs.
Oh, okay.
And Jody, our guitar player, said, I'll stay, because I think he lived in Austin. I'd moved to Nashville, or maybe I was living in L.A. at the time. So after a long tour, 10 weeks or something, I was ready to get home. It's like I'll overdub my part. Or it was just demos, really. But the demos, sounded so good, just left it like it was. And I thought it'd be sacrilegious to come in and start adding stuff to it. Yeah, so it was a great sounding. That Spirit thing was so cool and just really a magical piece. So we toured behind it, but without any drums. And then Paul, our drummer, was kind of the tour manager. And
hey guys, I want to get back on stage.
Yeah, so Willie said, well, okay, but you can just bring a snare out. We're not going to have a full kit. And they liked the way it sounded, so we've always stuck with the snare. We tried to sneak a kick out there one time, but Willie wouldn't have it.
Now, why, though? Like, what? For what reason?
I think he just likes it really
just
light
sparse.
and airy. Yeah.
Right.
But then we'll still do these one-offs, with Kenny Aronoff, which is the...
Oh, really?
The anti-snare. Yeah.
Right.
Which is your heavy gun.
Yeah, so, I was going to say that's anything but light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Willie does... we were doing 2-hour shows. We're down to a lot shorter show now. And but that's just the way it morphed into.
Is it true that you guys don't have a set list?
No set list.
Because seeing Willie Nelson live, seeing you guys live, it reminds me of seeing the Ramones. In that, if you ever saw the Ramones, there was no break between the songs. Mm-hmm. It was like they just 1, 2, 3, 4, you know what I mean? And that's like how he runs his show.
Yeah, he doesn't talk in between.
It's just bang, bang, bang. So you got to be on point, paying attention.
You have to pay attention even in the middle of the song because he'll flip the beat or you never know what he's going to do. No set list, but he kicks off. He starts every song just about. So all we have to do is just listen to what he starts, and I don't have to be there anyway at the beginning. But he has every intro. Kevin, our bass player, usually has to play some pickups, but he can wait till the first verse comes in. There's an intro, which signifies what we're doing. And Willie pretty much there's a pattern. You know, there's a method to the madness. But the other day, 20 minutes into the set, he just lost his place, and he starts doing this gospel set that we do towards the end. But then he kind of reeled himself back in. And
That's cool. I love that
so
it's not loose.
Oh, it's totally loose. And then, the only talking, he'll introduce the band.
Right.
But that's, there's no dialogue. He can get another couple of songs in.
Sure.
Without, telling stories.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect Willie Nelson to be out there going like, all right, this side, say what up?
Yeah, right.
So when did you move to Nashville? Like, were you guys going to Nashville to make records even like
no,
the years before?
Willie was never a fan of Nashville after
Right.
he left. I was out
But
here.
he was there for a long time.
Yeah, and then just couldn't make it really they loved his writing, but
Sure.
he, for some reason, the market just didn't support him.
So you guys weren't going there to record?
That was before me.
Right,
No,
yeah, I know
didn't.
that part was. But like once you joined the band, were you making any of those records in
Once
Nashville?
I joined the band, no, we did them in Austin because Willie'd have a studio in Austin.
Oh, okay.
Every once in a while, we'd go in, and Chip Smoma was our producer, so we did, his studio and players that he used, like Always on My Mind. That record was
Right.
done in Nashville.
And you live there now, right?
I live there now. I was in L.A. for maybe 20 years.
So how have you seen Nashville? Because I just spent a month in Nashville
It's
over the
grown,
summer,
so-
and it's like crazy boom
Yeah.
town.
Every time I come back, there's a new hotel or skyscraper or something.
When you see, like, if you say watch the movie Nashville, I don't know when that was filmed, sometime in the 70s or whatever.
the movie
it looks
Nashville,
just,
yes.
It just looks it looks like that town has changed radically. So I'm curious, like, what your,
I'd like to
perception of
take
the
it back to
change over
the-
the years.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, I just don't want to get like Austin, like the traffic's ridiculous where you can't get around. And
Right.
there is rush hour now. There never was. I live out of town, and it took me it used to take me 15 minutes to get downtown. Now it's a little longer, and
Right.
you have to figure out your schedules, but it's not like driving out here, it would take me forever to get into town.
Oh yeah, no, it's LA.
You just couldn't figure it out.
LA's
Yeah.
a complete disaster.
Yeah.
It's like I grew up in Southern California, not in LA, but I've been here for a long time. And it's,
Well, I
It
lived
is the
at the
bane of my
beach, and if I had to
existence.
come in for a session, I'd leave 2 hours before.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 4-hour day if you're gonna,
totally.
in the car.
Crossing the 405, that's like pretty much your whole day.
Yeah.
I live on the other side of the 405. So it's like I never get. It's funny being in Hollywood. I'm always like, wow, it's so different over here now, and it's been
Yeah.
so long.
And usually, if I come out here to work, I'll try to get a hotel near wherever we're working.
Right.
So it'd be nice to stay at the beach, but if I
Right.
have to be in Hollywood every day, it's a real schlep. You're committed to being in a car.
I mean, are you around? The East Nashville kind of alt country rootsy music scene?
so- Well, not so much. That's really almost grown while I've been gone.
Sure.
But I go over there and I play. I play with Keith Gaddis,
Right.
Audley Freed.
Sure.
These guys. Whenever they put a band together, I'm always playing. Playing with them. Jim Oblon,
Yeah.
great guitar player, he plays with Paul Simon. So I've got the different configurations, different bands I can go play with, go jam with, or do a blues night or something like that.
And what do you make of the current crop of artists that are drawing from more classic country styles?
I love
and
it.
sounds?
Like Jason Isbell or
Sure,
Sturgill,
Sturgill,
yeah, and
even
Chris
Chris Stapleton,
Stapleton,
that
of
whole
course.
thing.
Margot Price,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I've been sitting in with Margot a little bit. She's been out on
Oh,
the road
really?
with this, so that's fun.
I've been trying to nail her down for an interview, but have not had success yet.
Yeah,
Put in the good work.
I will.
Yeah.
Tell her we just worked together. So
Oh, okay, cool, yeah. Okay, so you didn't really grow up listening to a ton of country, but once you joined Willie's band, did you just immerse yourself in it, or was it just like you had no choice because it was just you?
No,
just
I
around
loved
it
it. Then
all
I
the time?
started to get it. I
Right.
discovered Merle Haggard, and we were hanging out with Merle. Who I wanted to hang out with, and this guy was around because he was a close friend of Willie's, was Leon Russell. Leon was the biggest star on the planet.
Right.
And when I lived out here, Leon lived in the Valley. It was in Toluca Lake, and he called me one time and he said, I'm going to take you to meet Paul Butterfield, who was my idol. So he drove in his pickup truck all the way out. I was living in the Palisades, drove out there to pick me up and take me back to the Roxy to hear and introduce me to Paul Butterfield, and Ringo was there that night.
Oh, man.
And, Paul was my idol. And then
Right.
eventually I met Paul again in later years, and we spent a lot of time.
Did you ever play music together?
Yeah, I saw him in New York, and I took him to our manager managed Miles Davis, so I took him to Miles' 60th birthday, And after the party, we were walking back to my hotel. It's probably 2 a.m, and we're both playing harmonica and just listening, in downtown Manhattan, listening to it just echo off the sides of these skyscrapers. It was pretty magical.
I mean, you must have been in the room for some amazing moments over the years, like just between some of the guys that you've mentioned just now, like Merle Haggard and Waylon Jennings and all those people that have been around Willie, the whole time. Like, is there like a standout moment, like one of those just
probably Waylon
and Merle and Ringo Starr and yada yada?
Well, there's two stories. One is, and this is later because we spent a lot of time with Neil Young. And Neil came out to, he called me and he said, we were playing in San Jose or somewhere near his ranch. And he says, I'm going to come out and see you guys.
That property is insane, by the way.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah. He said, I'm going to come get you and Willie, bring you out to the house for lunch or barbecue or something. So he showed up in his Cadillac, the convertible that was the same year that the one that Hank Williams was riding in when he died. So he picks us up, and he and Willie are in the front of the caddy, and I'm in the back, and I'm just laying in the back seat, got the whole back seat to myself. And we go up to the ranch, and you pull up to the gate. It's a big, cattle ranch. And I guess we pulled up to the gate. It's got a lock on it. It's never locked, but it's got a lock on it. So Willie gets out to open the gate, and Neil very slowly is driving through the gate, and I'm laying in the back seat. Neil Young's driving this Cadillac, and I thought, if I could only have a picture now, me just completely stretched out in the back of this caddy.
It's a shame that all of that kind of stuff happened before we all had cell phones with video cameras and whatever on them all the time, and the world was so documented.
Well, everybody was taking selfies, but at the point, I might not have even taken a picture.
Right.
It's like one of these things that, it's just in my mind, and why bring out a
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things you wish somebody else had a.
Right. You wish Danny Clinch was there.
Yeah, that's right.
Snapping away. What was Merle like?
Merle was great. Merle was very sweet, and he was another one that I was such a fan of. And I thought, Okie from Muskogee, this is the reason that I used to get picked on or beat up when I was a kid in high school with long hair. But he was very cool.
Right.
He was very progressive and just a wonderful guy to be around. Very musical, loved musicians.
A guy that never really stopped learning either, right?
Yeah, and he was always studying.
He was always working on his craft, like learning how to play the fiddle.
And listening to young
guitar
guys.
Player.
Yeah, he's a great player, and his son Ben is a great player too.
Yeah.
But he was. He asked me, "You ever heard of Sturgill Simpson?" And
really?
It's like, yeah. Who turned you on to him? I think
man.
Ben did. And then I turned him on to Jason Isbell. So I said, if you like Sturgill, check out Jason and Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
But he was open like that, and when you would sit, he'd ask me to sit in with the band, and he already had a 10, 12-piece band. It's like, dude, you've got enough players. And he goes, nah, I just like to hear you play.
I mean, what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, he would just pass
you just kind of pat it out?
Yeah, well, I would just wait till he would. Every night would be a different order of who takes solos, and you'd be playing a song, and he'd just point to you. If he was playing fiddle, he'd take his bow and kind of like Bob Wills, and just point when it's your time to solo.
And is that how Willie does it, or do you know?
No, we know it's a pattern. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it usually goes. Bobby takes his first solo, then I take one, then Willie. But like the other night, it was Bobby's turn for a song, and Willie looks at me and nods at me. And we'd already played our solos, but we were kind of on a roll, and Willie just
stretch it out a little bit.
Said, "Let's go again." You know? So at that point, it's all eye contact. But.
Now, why do you think, it seems to me and I don't pay super close attention to your tour dates or whatever, but it seems like Willie Nelson still works a lot on the road. Why is that? Because I think it isn't like a lot of like older cats are like that, like Bob Dylan's the same way. It's just like that's where he's more comfortable or whatever. Because it can't be about the money or anything like that. It's, what do you think drives that?
He likes the connection with the audience. And somebody asked him one time, when are you going to retire? And he goes, all I do is play golf and play music. Which one am I supposed to quit?
Right.
So he really loves to play. The beginning of this year, like I say, we were working. We went from 130 dates to maybe 90 dates last year. This year started off slow too, and Willie just said, I want to kick it up. Let's put the dates back in. Let's play 10 days a month instead of
And is it
5
weekends?
or 7.
Do you guys do that?
No,
weekend
we go
thing?
out. I mean, we'll go out. Whatever day we go out, we stay out.
Oh, okay.
So
you just go out straight.
Yeah. So, I mean, but maybe this tour might be 2 weeks.
And are you at the end of do you tour in cycles? Because it seems like he also makes records, or you guys make records Like, I was just looking before I came over here at his releases over just the last 10 or 20 years. It's like sometimes there's like 2 or 3 records a year.
Yeah, well, I mean, the records, we cut the tracks in Nashville.
Right.
Buddy Ken, our producer, now, we'll cut the tracks, and if I'm on the road, I'll come in and overdub my part. And then when they can catch Willie, he'll go down to Austin to Willie's studio, and put Willie's vocal on. So we're not cutting them so much where everybody's in the room.
Right.
I mean, we do sometime. It just depends. Like this next record that I really like, I love the songs. He was cutting 3 songs at a time.
Right.
So
does it have a theme?
No, well, it's called God's Problem Child, and it was a song that Jamie Johnson and Tony Joe White wrote.
Wrote together.
Yeah, wrote together,
wow.
and it's really dark.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Tony plays some great guitar on there. Tony Joe, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you for sitting down with me.
Oh, my
I really
pleasure.
appreciate it. I'm sure you got a busy day, so much appreciated.
Thank you.
Sometimes guests will play a song or whatever. I don't know if you have a harp on it. If you want to just blow a little, just for fun. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Mickey Raphael on Walking the Floor. Mickey Raphael. He's that tall, cool-looking gentleman, always standing right next to Willie Nelson on stage for the last, 40 years or whatever. If you want to see what Mickey's up to, make sure you go to mickeyraphael.com. I don't know if he's on the social media, but, Willie Nelson's pretty much constantly on the road. So if he's not near you now, he'll be near you soon. Okay, make sure you go to the iTunes store, subscribe to Walking the Floor, check out all the previous episodes. Today I'm going to leave you with something a little different, because once we were done with the interview and we were just kind of hanging around shooting the shit, I remember one more question I wanted to ask him, so I'm going to let this roll out with that. This has been Walking the Floor. Adios, amigos!
Don't see why don't stay a little longer.
Hey, one thing, and we touched on it a little bit, but I meant to ask you about it, was how you wound up connecting with Chris Stapleton.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I just got booked on the record. It's the first time I'd heard of him. Dave Cobb called me to play on this record.
How did you get to know Dave Cobb?
How did I know Dave? Oh, I'd done some demos. I worked with him in the studio. I think he was doing Anderson East. So I'd played on Anderson some of his... Actually, before he's doing what he's doing now, he was doing some country stuff.
Oh, okay.
So it was before that soulful sound he has now. So I'd played with Anderson. I think Anderson then met Dave, and they heard me play. And I think Dave has worked with Shooter Jennings.
Sure.
So he's probably known about me through, Waylon and through...
Right. Well, I'm sure he knew who you were.
Possibly.
All through that time. But I was wondering how you wound up connecting with those guys.
Yeah, so I played on Chris's record, and he said, hey, if you ever want to come sit in, Well, no, that was... Well, I think I was in town, and he was doing something for the CMA. So there was like a showcase show that we were able to do.
Right.
And he said, hey, if you ever want to play with us, and it's like, sure. He's great fun to play with.
Yeah.
And it's loose enough to where, I mean, they're generous enough to where I can pick and choose the dates, and it doesn't conflict with Willie.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool. Anyway, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to squeeze that in there.